Tekvar's scales turned a dull gray as his transport ship moved toward Proxima Station. The massive mining facility hung in space like a metal spider. Its legs reached out into the asteroid field, pulling rocks and metals from the darkness. He had been to many battles in his 200 years of life, but this felt different. The Corvani Empire had made a deal with the humans. The Terran Federation, they called themselves. Tekvar did not like deals with other species. The Corvani were strong. They had thick scales, sharp claws, and powerful muscles. They did not need help from soft-skinned creatures, but the HFY were coming. The insect-like aliens had already destroyed 3 star systems. They ate everything in their path: plants, animals, even the rocks and metal. When they finished with a world, nothing was left but empty space. Tekvar's ship docked with Proxima Station. The airlock opened with a hiss. He stepped inside and immediately noticed the smell. Humans had a strange scent. Not bad, just different, like warm earth after rain. The human who met him was small, much smaller than Tekvar. The Corvani warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall. This human barely reached his chest. The man wore the blue uniform of the Terran Federation. A small metal tag on his chest read, Captain Lee Deho. "Welcome to Proxima Station," Lee Deho said. His voice was calm and steady. "I hope your trip was not too hard." Tekvar looked down at the human. "Captain." The man's skin was pale and looked thin. No scales to protect him. No claws to fight with. Just soft flesh that would tear easily. "I am Tekvar, Field Commander of the Corvani 4th Strike Force. My warriors are ready for battle." "Good," Lee Deho smiled. "We will need everyone we can get. The HFY fleet will be here in 6 hours." They walked through the station's corridors. Tekvar saw more humans working at computers and checking weapons. They all looked so fragile. Their bodies were small and weak. Some were even smaller than Lee Deho. How could these creatures fight the HFY? "How many ships are coming?" Tekvar asked. "Our scouts counted about 10,000 HFY vessels," Lee Deho replied. He said it like he was talking about the weather. Tekvar stopped walking. 10,000? How many defenders do we have?" 847, the human captain answered, "not counting your strike force, so about 900 total." The Corvani warrior felt his blood go cold. 900 against 10,000. That was not a battle. That was suicide. "Captain, perhaps we should call for more ships. The Corvani fleet could send reinforcements." Lee Deho shook his head. "No time. The HFY will be here soon. Don't worry, Commander. We have fought worse odds before." They entered the main command center. Holographic displays showed the station's defenses. Tekvar studied the layout. The station had good shields and weapons, but not enough to stop 10,000 ships. He looked at the humans working at their stations. They seemed calm. Too calm. "Do your people understand what is coming?" Tekvar asked. A female human looked up from her computer. She was young, with short black hair. Her name tag read, Sergeant Park Minho. Wait, that was wrong. Tekvar looked again. The tag actually said, Sergeant Park Nari. His translator must have made an error. "We know exactly what's coming," Sergeant Park Nari said. "The HFY are tough fighters, but so are we." Another human walked over. This one was a male with broad shoulders and a big smile. "Private Kang Ji-won," he introduced himself. "I handle the explosives. Can't wait to see how HFY look when they meet our new plasma charges." Tekvar stared at the human. Kang Ji-won was actually excited about the coming battle. Against impossible odds, this small creature was looking forward to fighting. Either humans were very brave or very stupid. "Commander Tekvar," Lee Deho called. "Let me show you where your troops will be stationed." They moved to another display. The captain pointed to several red dots on the station's outer ring. "Your warriors will guard these access points. The HFY will try to cut through the hull and board us. We need your people to stop them." Tekvar nodded. His soldiers were good at close combat. Their claws and teeth could tear through HFY armor. "What about your people? Where will they fight?" "Everywhere," Lee Deho said simply. "We'll be in the corridors, the service tunnels, the reactor room, wherever the bugs show up." A new voice spoke from behind them. "Sir, we have movement on the long-range sensors." Thekvar turned to see another human. This one was male, thin, with quiet eyes. His name tag read Sergeant Park Minho, so there were two Parks. The Corvani warrior made a note to learn human naming customs later. What kind of movement? Lee, Daiho asked. "Vex-High scout ships, about 50 of them. They're moving fast toward our position. Time until they arrive?" 20 minutes, sir. Lee Daiho nodded. "Send the word. All units to battle stations. This is not a drill." Alarms began ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Humans moved quickly, but without panic. They checked their weapons and put on their armor. The armor looked thin to Thekvar. It would not stop Vex-High claws. "Commander," Lee Daiho said, "you should get your warriors ready. The scouts will test our defenses before the main fleet arrives." Thekvar activated his communicator. "All Corvani units prepare for combat. The enemy approaches." He looked at the humans around him. They were so small and weak. He would have to protect them during the battle. A young female human approached. She wore medical gear and carried a large bag of supplies. "I'm Private Choi Nari," she said. "I'll be treating wounded during the fight. Don't worry about us, Commander. We can take care of ourselves." The Corvani warrior looked down at her. Private Choi Nari was even smaller than the others. Her arms looked like twigs. How could she survive in battle? "Stay behind my warriors," he told her. "We will keep you safe." Choi Nari smiled. "That's kind of you. But I go where the wounded are." Even if that's in the middle of the fighting? Thekvar could not believe what he was hearing. This tiny creature planned to walk into combat to help others. Either humans were the bravest species in the galaxy, or they did not understand how dangerous fighting was. "Contacts on sensors," Sergeant Park Minho announced. "Vex-High scouts have entered weapons range." On the main display, Thekvar saw them, 50 dark shapes moving toward the station. Vex-High ships looked like giant insects, all angles and sharp edges. They moved in a swarm pattern hard to target. "All weapons, open fire," Lee Daiho ordered. The station's guns came alive. Bright energy beams reached out into space. Some hit the Vex-High ships, making them explode in balls of fire. But many of the alien vessels dodged the attacks. They were fast and clever. "They're breaking through the first defense line," someone reported. Thekvar watched the display. The Vex-High ships spread out and began attacking different parts of the station. Explosions rocked the metal structure. The lights flickered. "Hull breach in Section 7, another voice called. "Vex-High are boarding." "Here we go," Kang Ji-won said cheerfully. He picked up a large weapon and headed for the door. "Time to welcome our guests." Lee Daiho activated the station's communication system. His voice went out to every room and corridor. "All units, the enemy has landed. Defend your positions. Fight hard and watch each other's backs. Show them what happens when they mess with our home." Thekvar felt something strange. The humans around him had changed. Not in how they looked, but in how they felt. Before, they had seemed calm and relaxed. Now there was something else, something cold and focused. Like predators getting ready to hunt. "Commander," Lee Daiho said, "your warriors should move to their positions now. The real fight is about to begin." Thekvar nodded and headed for the door. As he walked, he thought about what he had seen. The humans were not afraid of the Vex-High. They were not worried about the impossible odds. If anything, they seemed excited. Maybe humans were tougher than they looked. Maybe their soft skin and small size did not tell the whole story. Thekvar had fought many enemies in his long life. But he had never fought beside creatures that smiled when death came knocking. He reached his warriors and began giving orders. The battle for Proxima Station was about to begin. Thekvar just hoped the humans would survive long enough for his soldiers to save them. The first Vex-High warrior came through the hull breach like a nightmare made real. It stood 7 feet tall on 6 legs. Its black armor gleamed under the station's lights. 4 arms ended in razor-sharp claws. Its head had too many eyes and a mouth full of teeth designed for tearing flesh. Thekvar and his warriors were ready. They had taken position in the corridor leading from Section 7. Their weapons were charged, and their claws were sharp. Behind them, 3 humans crouched, behind metal barriers. They looked so small compared to the alien monster. The Vex-High warrior made a sound like breaking glass. More of its kind poured through the breach. 5, then 10, then 20. They moved fast, their claws clicking on the metal floor. "Fire!" Tekvar roared. Energy bolts flew down the corridor. Several Vex-Hi fell, their bodies smoking. But more kept coming. They were tough creatures, built for war. Some of the wounded ones kept fighting, even with holes burned through their armor. Tekvar heard human weapons firing behind him. The sounds were different from Corvani guns, sharper, more focused. He glanced back and saw something that surprised him. The 3 humans were not hiding behind their barriers. They were standing up, taking careful aim, and shooting with deadly accuracy. One human was Sergeant Park Minho, the quiet man from the command center. He held his rifle steady and fired single shots. Each shot hit a Vex-Hi in exactly the right place. Headshots, heart shots, joints in their armor. He moved the gun smoothly from target to target, like he was doing simple math. A Vex-Hi warrior broke through the Corvani line. It ran toward the humans, all 6 legs moving in a blur. Its claws were raised to strike. Tekvar tried to turn and help, but more enemies were pressing forward. Sergeant Park Minho did not run. He did not even step back. He waited until the Vex-Hi was almost on top of him, then shot it once in the head. The alien crashed to the floor and slid past him. Park Minho stepped over the body and kept firing at other targets. The fight continued for 10 minutes. When it was over, 23 Vex-Hi lay dead in the corridor. The Corvani had lost 2 warriors. The humans had lost no one. Tekvar walked over to Park Minho. The human was reloading his weapon with quick, practiced movements. "Good shooting," the Corvani commander said. "Thank you," Park Minho replied. His voice was still calm, like they had just finished target practice. "The Vex-Hi have weak spots in their neck armor, right behind the 3rd joint. One shot there and they drop." Tekvar stared at him. How did this human know so much about Vex-Hi anatomy? The bugs were a new enemy. The first contact with them had been only months ago. Yet Park Minho talked about their weak spots like he had been studying them for years. "How do you know where to shoot them?" Tekvar asked. Park Minho shrugged. "We study our enemies. Captain Lee made us watch hours of combat footage before you arrived. We know how they move, how they think, how they die." Another human came running down the corridor. It was Private Choi Nari, the small medic. She carried her medical bag and moved quickly toward the wounded Corvani warriors. "I can help them," she said, kneeling beside one of Tekvar's soldiers. The wounded Corvani had taken Vex-Hi claws across his chest, deep cuts that bled green blood. Choi Nari opened her bag and pulled out medical tools. Her hands moved fast and sure as she cleaned the wounds and applied bandages. "Your medicine will not work on our people," Tekvar told her. "Our biology is too different." "I know," Choi Nari said without looking up. "That's why Captain Lee gave me Corvani medical supplies yesterday. I spent all night learning how to use them." Tekvar watched in amazement as the tiny human worked on his warrior. She knew exactly what to do. Her hands never shook, even though she was kneeling in a corridor full of dead aliens. When she finished, the Corvani's bleeding had stopped. "He will be fine," she said, standing up. "The cuts are not deep enough to hit vital organs." Before Tekvar could thank her, alarms began ringing again. A voice came over the communication system. "Multiple breaches in sections 4, 9, and 12. Heavy Vex-Hi forces detected. We need to move," Park Minho said. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and headed down the corridor. The other humans followed him without question. Tekvar gave orders to his remaining warriors and followed the humans. They moved through the station's corridors at a fast pace. The humans seemed to know exactly where they were going. They reached Section 9 just as Vex-Hi forces were breaking through the walls. This group was larger than the first. At least 40 alien warriors poured into the station. Their claws scraped against metal as they searched for defenders to kill. "Take positions," Park Minho said quietly. The 3 humans spread out along the corridor. They found cover behind support beams and maintenance panels. Tekvar and his warriors took their own positions. They had fought together for many years and knew each other's movements. But something felt different this time. The humans were not waiting for orders from their Corvani allies. They were making their own plans. The Vex-Hi came around the corner in a rush. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light. Saliva dripped from their teeth. They made horrible sounds as they ran, like metal being torn apart. The humans opened fire first. Their shots were perfectly timed and placed. 3 Vex-Hi fell before they could take another step. The aliens tried to spread out, but the corridor was narrow. They bunched up, making easy targets. Thekvar and his warriors joined the fight. Energy bolts and claw strikes filled the air. The Vex-Hi fought back hard, but they were caught in a bad position. The humans had chosen the perfect place for an ambush. During the battle, Thekvar saw something that made him pause. One of the humans, a young man he had not met before, ran out of ammunition. Instead of falling back to reload, the human pulled out a knife. A small metal blade that looked like a toy compared to Vex-Hi claws. A Vex-Hi warrior charged at the human. The alien was twice his size and had 4 times as many weapons, but the human did not retreat. He stepped forward and drove his knife into the Vex-Hi's throat. When the alien fell, the human pulled out his blade and stabbed it again. And again. Thekvar had seen many species fight for their lives. But this human was not fighting for survival. He was fighting to destroy his enemy completely. There was something cold and focused in his movements, like he enjoyed what he was doing. The battle ended quickly. All 40 Vex-Hi were dead. The humans checked their weapons and prepared to move to the next fight. They acted like this was normal. Like killing dozens of alien warriors was just part of their day. "Commander," Park Min-ho called, "we should check the other breach points. The Vex-Hi will keep sending more troops until their main fleet arrives." Thekvar nodded, but his mind was spinning. The humans had fought with perfect teamwork. They knew exactly what to do without talking to each other. It was like they shared one mind. Private Choi Nari was treating another wounded Corvani. She worked quickly and efficiently. Her small hands steady even though alien blood covered the walls around her. When a drop of Vex-Hi acid fell from the ceiling and landed near her, she simply moved aside and kept working. "How many more attacks will there be?" Thekvar asked Park Min-ho. "The scouts will keep probing our defenses for another hour," the human replied. "They are testing how we fight, looking for weak spots. When the main fleet arrives, they will hit us with everything they have. And you think we can win?" Park Min-ho looked at him with those quiet eyes. "Commander, the Vex-Hi have never fought humans before. They think they know what we are capable of. They are wrong." There was something in the human's voice that made Thekvar feel strange. Not fear exactly, but unease, like he was missing something important. Another alarm sounded. More breaches, more enemies. The humans gathered their gear and headed toward the new battle. They moved with the same calm confidence they had shown all day. Thekvar followed them, but his thoughts were troubled. He had expected to protect the humans during this fight. Instead, they were protecting themselves. And they were very good at it. Too good, perhaps. The humans fought like they had been born for war. Every movement was perfect. Every shot hit its target. They showed no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. What kind of species produced warriors like this? What kind of world created creatures that smiled in the face of death and stabbed their enemies with small knives? As they reached the next battle zone, Thekvar realized something that chilled his blood. The humans had been holding back during the first fights. They were not using their full abilities yet. They were still testing the Vex-Hi, learning how their enemies fought. What would happen when they stopped holding back? The main Vex-Hi fleet arrived like a storm of death. 10,000 ships darkened the space around Proxima Station. Their hulls were black metal covered in sharp spines. Weapons ports glowed red along their sides. They moved in perfect formation, like a single giant creature. Thekvar stood in the command center watching the display. Each red dot on the screen was a ship full of alien warriors. The numbers made his head spin. Even if every defender killed 100 enemies, they would still lose. "All units, prepare for full assault," Captain Lee Daeho announced. His voice carried through every corridor of the station. "The big fleet is here. Time to show them what we're made of." The first wave hit like a hammer. Hundreds of Vex-Hi ships opened fire at the same time. Energy beams and missiles slammed into the station's shields. The metal structure shook like a leaf in a storm. Lights flickered and went out in some sections. Shield. "Strength down to 60%, someone reported. "Hull breaches in sections 2, 6, 11, and 15, another voice called. Multiple boarding parties detected. At least 2,000 Vex-High warriors inside the station. Thekvar felt his courage failing. 2,000 enemies were already inside, and more were coming every second. The station's defenders were spread too thin. They could not be everywhere at once, but the humans around him looked calm, too calm. Captain Lee Daeho studied the tactical display like he was reading a book. Sergeant Park Minho checked his weapon with steady hands. Private Choi Nari organized her medical supplies like she was preparing for a normal day at work. All Korvani units, fall back to secondary positions, Thekvar ordered. It was the smart thing to do. His warriors could not hold the outer sections against so many enemies. Belay that order, Lee Daeho said quietly. Thekvar turned to stare at the human captain. What did you say? Your warriors should stay where they are. We're not retreating. Captain, there are 2,000 enemies inside the station. More are coming every minute. We have to fall back and make a stand at the reactor core. Lee Daeho shook his head. No retreating. No falling back. We hold every corridor, every room, every inch of this station. That's impossible, Thekvar said. We don't have enough fighters. The human captain looked at him with those strange, calm eyes. Commander, you've been fighting alongside us for hours, but you haven't seen us really fight yet. You've seen us being polite. Before Thekvar could ask what that meant, explosions shook the station again. The Vex-High were cutting through the inner hull now. Soon they would reach the command center. Sir, Sergeant Park Minho said, Vex-High forces have broken through Section 8. They're heading for the reactor room. How many? Lee Daeho asked. 200, sir. Maybe more. Lee Daeho nodded. Send word to all human units. Execute Protocol 7. Thekvar had never heard those words before. But when Lee Daeho said them, every human in the command center stopped what they were doing. They looked at their captain with expressions Thekvar could not read. Protocol 7, sir? Park Minho asked. Are you sure? I'm sure. The bugs wanted a fight. Let's give them one they'll never forget. Park Minho nodded and activated his communicator. All human units, this is Sergeant Park Minho. Protocol 7 is now active. Repeat, Protocol 7 is active. Rules of engagement are lifted. Show them what we really are. The response came back from dozens of voices. Human soldiers all over the station acknowledged the order, but their voices sounded different now, colder, harder, like something had changed inside them. What is Protocol 7? Thekvar asked. Lee Daeho looked at him for a long moment. It means we stop pretending to be civilized. Alarms rang through the station as more Vex-High poured inside. Reports came in from all sections. The aliens were everywhere, moving in organized groups toward important targets. They fought with the efficiency of a hive mind, but something was happening to the human defenders. The reports coming over the communication system started to change. Section 4 clear. All hostiles eliminated. Section 12 secure. No survivors. Reactor. Room defended. Vex-High forces destroyed. Thekvar frowned. The humans were winning their battles. Not just surviving, but winning decisively. How was that possible against such overwhelming numbers? I need to see what's happening, he told Lee. Daeho, my warriors need support. Go ahead, the captain replied. But Commander, be prepared for what you're about to see. My people are not the same anymore. Thekvar left the command center and ran through the corridors toward Section 8. The station shook constantly from weapons fire and explosions. Emergency lights cast everything in red. The air smelled of smoke and alien blood. He reached Section 8 and stopped in shock. The corridor was full of dead Vex-High, but they had not died from energy weapons or explosions. They had been torn apart by hand. Claws marks covered the walls. Alien limbs were scattered across the floor. At the end of the corridor, Thekvar saw Park Minho. The quiet sergeant was dragging a dead Vex-High behind him, but this was not the same human who had calmly shot enemies from cover. Park Minho's uniform was covered in black alien blood. His eyes were bright and wild. He was smiling. Commander, Park Minho called cheerfully. Perfect timing. I was just finishing up here. Thekvar looked around the corridor again. You did all this? Alone? Oh, no, Park Minho laughed. There were 5 of us, but the others moved on to Section 9. 200 Vex-High warriors came this way. They thought they would take the reactor room. Where are they now? Park Minho pointed to the scattered body parts. Right there, and over there by the wall. Thekvar felt something cold crawl up his spine. You killed 200 enemies with 5 people? Killed them? Park Minho tilted his head, like he was thinking. No, Commander. We didn't just kill them. We hunted them. There's a difference. The human sergeant knelt beside a dead Vexhai and did something that made Thekvar step backward. He used his knife to cut off one of the alien's claws. Then he threaded a string through it and hung it around his neck like jewelry. Souvenir, Park Minho explained. The captain likes us to bring back proof of kills. Before Thekvar could respond, his communicator crackled. It was one of his warriors in Section 12. Commander, you need to see this. The humans here? Something is wrong with them. Thekvar ran towards Section 12. Behind him, he heard Park Minho whistling a cheerful tune as he collected more trophies from the dead aliens. Section 12 was worse. The Vexhai had tried to set up a defensive position here. They had built barriers from torn metal and positioned themselves to cover all approaches. It should have been impossible to break through, but the human assault team had not tried to break through. They had gone around, above, and under the Vexhai position. Some had crawled through ventilation shafts. Others had cut holes in the floor and attacked from below. They had surrounded the aliens and attacked from every direction at once. The aftermath looked like a slaughterhouse. Vexhai bodies were piled in corners. Their weapons were bent and broken. Dark blood covered everything. Private Choi Nari knelt beside a wounded Corvani warrior. But she was not treating his injuries. She was bandaging his eyes. What happened to him? Thekvar asked. He saw too much, Choi Nari replied. Her voice was still gentle, but there was something else in it now, something that made Thekvar nervous. Some things are better not to watch. What things? Choi Nari looked up at him. Her face was splattered with alien blood, but her expression was calm. What we do to enemies who hurt our friends. She pointed to a corner where several Vexhai bodies hung from the ceiling. They had been arranged in a pattern that made no sense to Thekvar, but something about it filled him with dread. They wounded 3 of our people, Choi Nari explained, so we made examples of them. The other bugs saw what happened and tried to surrender, but we don't take prisoners during Protocol 7. Thekvar stared at the small human medic. A few hours ago, she had been gently treating wounded soldiers. Now she talked about torture and execution like they were medical procedures. Choi Nari, he said carefully, what has happened to you? To all of you? She smiled. It was not a cruel smile or an evil one. It was warm and friendly. That made it even more terrifying. Nothing has happened to us, Commander. This is who we always were. We just stopped hiding it. Explosions shook the station again. More Vexhai ships were attacking the outer hull, but Thekvar was no longer worried about the alien invasion. He was worried about the humans defending the station. What kind of species could switch from gentle healers to ruthless killers in an instant? What kind of creatures could smile while they tore their enemies apart with bare hands? As he ran back toward the command center, Thekvar realized the truth. The humans had not allied with the Corvani Empire to get protection. They had allied to keep other species from finding out what they really were, and now he had seen it. Now he knew what lurked beneath their soft skin and gentle smiles. The real terror was not the 10,000 Vexhai ships outside the station. The real terror was the humans inside it. The station's reactor core was the heart of Proxima Station. Massive machines hummed and glowed in the vast chamber. Energy flowed through thick cables that snaked across the ceiling. If the Vexhai took this room, the station would die. Thekvar reached the reactor level just as the largest group of Vexhai broke through the outer barriers. Over 500 alien warriors poured into the chamber. They moved like black water, flowing around the huge machines. Their claws sparked against metal as they searched for defenders to kill. Captain Lee Daeho was already there with 20 human soldiers. 20 humans against 500 Vexhai. The numbers were insane. Even with Protocol 7 active, this was too much. Captain, Thekvar called as he ran toward the human position. We need to evacuate this area. There are too many of them. Lee, Daeho turned to look at him. The human captain's face was calm, but his eyes had changed. They were cold now, like winter ice. Commander, take your warriors and secure the upper levels. Make sure no more bugs get down here. What about you? You can't fight all of them. Watch us. Tekvar wanted to argue, but something in the captain's voice stopped him. It was not anger or fear. It was anticipation. Like Lee Daeho was looking forward to what came next, the Corvani commander positioned his warriors at the entrance to the reactor level. From there, he could see down into the main chamber. What he saw next would stay with him for the rest of his life. The Vex-High charged across the reactor floor in a black wave. Their war cries echoed off the metal walls, 500 killers moving as one, ready to tear apart anything in their path. The 20 humans did not run. They did not even take cover. Instead, they spread out among the reactor machinery and waited. Lee Daeho raised his hand. Remember, he called to his soldiers, leave some alive at the end. We need to send a message to their friends outside. The first Vex-High reached the human position. A massive warrior with scars across its armor swung 4 clawed arms at once. Any normal creature would have been cut to pieces, but the human soldier simply stepped aside. The alien's claws hit empty air. Before the Vex-High could recover, the human grabbed one of its arms and twisted. Bones snapped with a sound like breaking wood. The alien screamed and fell. The human did not stop there. He stomped on the fallen Vex-High's head until it stopped moving. Then he picked up the body and threw it at 3 more approaching enemies. This was not the careful, precise fighting Tekvar had seen before. This was something else, something primitive and savage. The humans had stopped using their advanced weapons and tactics. Now they fought with hands and feet and teeth. Private Kang Ji-won laughed as he grabbed a Vex-High by 2 of its legs. He spun around like a dancer and slammed the alien into a wall. The impact left a crater in the metal. Kang Ji-won kept spinning and slammed the creature into the wall again. And again. "This is fun," he shouted to his friends. "Why don't we do this more often?" Sergeant Park Min-ho had found a piece of broken pipe. He used it like a club, smashing Vex-High skulls with each swing. Black blood covered his uniform, but he kept smiling. When the pipe broke, he picked up a Vex-High claw and used that as a weapon instead. In the center of the chamber, Captain Lee Daeho fought 3 aliens at once. He moved like water flowing around their attacks. When one Vex-High tried to bite him, he grabbed its jaws and pulled them apart until they tore loose from the skull. Tekvar could not believe what he was seeing. The humans were not just winning the fight. They were playing with their enemies, like cats with mice. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the reactor chamber looked like a slaughterhouse. Vex-High body parts were scattered everywhere. Dark blood covered the walls and ceiling. The smell was so strong that Tekvar had to cover his nose. In the middle of the carnage, the 20 human soldiers stood unharmed. Their uniforms were torn and bloody, but they showed no signs of injury. They were breathing hard, but not from exhaustion, from excitement. "Count them," Lee Daeho ordered. The humans walked among the dead aliens, poking bodies with their feet. 497 dead, sir," someone reported. 3 still alive." "Good. Bring the live ones here." Tekvar watched in horror as the humans dragged 3 wounded Vex-High to the center of the chamber. The aliens were badly hurt, but still conscious. Their eyes showed pain and fear. "Listen carefully," Lee Daeho said to the prisoners. His voice was soft and friendly, like he was talking to children. "I want you to go back to your ships. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them how many of you we killed. Tell them how we did it." One of the Vex-High tried to speak, but only blood came out of its mouth. "I know you're hurt," Lee Daeho continued, "but you'll live long enough to deliver the message. We made sure of that." He gestured to his soldiers. "Show them to the nearest airlock. Make sure they get safely back to their fleet." As the humans escorted the prisoners away, Tekvar came down to the reactor floor. He had to step carefully to avoid the scattered body parts. The smell of death was everywhere. "Captain," he said, "what was the point of letting them go?" "They will just bring back more warriors." Lee Daeho was cleaning Vex-High blood off his hands with a cloth. "That's exactly what I want them to do." "I don't understand." The human captain looked at him with those cold eyes. "Commander, how many Vex-High do you think are left on their ships?" Tekvar thought about it. "Perhaps 50,000, maybe more." "And how many of us are left on this station?" "Less than 800. Lee Daeho smiled. It was not a nice smile. Perfect odds. When they come back, they'll bring everyone. All their warriors, all their ships. They'll want to crush us completely. And then we'll all die. No, Commander. Then we'll kill them all at once. Every last one. Thekvar stared at the human captain. You're talking about genocide, the complete destruction of their species. Yes, Lee Deho said simply. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The Corvani warrior felt his blood turn to ice. But why? Why kill them all? You could negotiate. Find a peaceful solution, Lee Deho pointed to the scattered Vexhi bodies. Commander, look around this room. These creatures came here to eat us, to consume everything we are and everything we've built. They don't negotiate. They don't surrender. They only destroy. He walked closer to Thekvar. So we'll destroy them first. All of them. Every ship, every warrior, every egg on every world they come from. When we're done, the Vexhi will be nothing but a memory. That's impossible. There are billions of them across dozens of star systems. Lee Deho's smile grew wider. Commander, you still don't understand what humans are capable of. You've seen us fight a small battle on one station. But this is nothing compared to what we can do when we really try. Alarms started ringing again. New contacts on the sensors. The Vexhi fleet was moving closer to the station. They got our message, Lee Deho said with satisfaction. Time for the real fight to begin. He activated his communicator. All units, this is Captain Lee. The bugs are bringing everything they have. Full fleet assault incoming. You know what to do. The response came back from human soldiers all over the station, but they were not reporting defensive positions or casualty counts. They were asking for permission to board the Vexhi ships. Sir, request permission to take the fight to them. Captain, my team is ready to cut through their hull and get inside. We want to see how their homeworlds burn. Thekvar listened to the communications in growing horror. The humans were not trying to defend the station anymore. They were planning to attack the entire Vexhi fleet, a fleet of 10,000 ships. Captain, he said, this is suicide. Even if you could somehow win, the cost would be terrible. Your people will die. Lee Deho looked at him with something that might have been pity. Commander, humans don't die in battle. We multiply. Every one of us they kill just makes the rest of us more dangerous. He pointed to the nearest communication panel. Why don't you call your superiors? Tell them what you've seen here. Ask them about human military doctrine. Thekvar activated his communicator and contacted the Corvani High Command. When the connection opened, he quickly explained what was happening at Proxima Station. There was a long silence. Then an old voice spoke. It was General Morthan, the Supreme Commander of all Corvani forces. Commander Thekvar, the general said slowly, you are witnessing a human war, a real one. Do exactly what the humans tell you to do. Do not question their orders. Do not interfere with their plans. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that they never turn those plans on us. The communication ended. Thekvar stood in the bloody reactor chamber, surrounded by human warriors who smiled at the thought of committing genocide. For the first time in his long life, he understood what real fear felt like. The Vexhi fleet came like an angry storm. 10,000 ships moved toward Proxima Station in perfect formation, their weapons charged with deadly energy. This was their full strength, every warrior and every vessel they could bring to bear. Thekvar watched from the command center as the alien fleet approached. The display showed so many red dots that they looked like stars in a night sky. Each ship carried hundreds of warriors, millions of enemies coming to destroy everything in their path. Sir, Sergeant Park Min-ho reported, all Vexhi forces are moving to attack positions. They're bringing everything. Captain Lee Deho nodded with satisfaction. Perfect. Signal all human units. Operation Clean Sweep is now active. Thekvar had never heard that term before, but when Lee Deho said it, every human in the command center stopped what they were doing. They looked at their captain with expressions of pure joy. Clean sweep, sir? Park Min-ho asked. The whole fleet? Every last ship, Lee Deho confirmed. Time to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens human space. The humans began working at their stations with new energy. They were not preparing to defend the station anymore. They were preparing to attack. Thekvar watched in confusion. as they activated systems he had never seen before. "Captain," he said, "what is Operation Clean Sweep?" Lee Daeho looked at him with those cold eyes. "It's what we do when we stop playing nice, Commander. You wanted to see how humans really fight? Watch and learn." The first surprise came when the station's outer hull began to change. Metal panels slid aside to reveal weapons that had been hidden inside the structure. Massive energy cannons emerged from secret compartments. Missile launchers rose from the surface like metal flowers blooming. "You armed the mining station?" Thekvar asked in shock. "We arm everything," Lee Daeho replied. "Every human structure, every ship, every piece of equipment. We don't build anything that can't fight." The hidden weapons opened fire on the approaching Vexhai fleet, but these were not normal space weapons. The energy beams cut through alien ships like they were made of paper. Entire sections of the enemy fleet vanished in balls of fire. The Vexhai tried to return fire, but something was wrong with their weapons. Their energy beams scattered before reaching the station. Their missiles exploded in empty space. "How?" Thekvar whispered. "Shield harmonics," Park Min-ho explained cheerfully. "We studied their weapons for months, figured out their frequencies. Now their attacks just bounce off us." The slaughter continued for 10 minutes. The station's hidden weapons destroyed ship after ship. But that was only the beginning. "Launch assault pods," Lee Daeho ordered. Thekvar saw small ships detach from the station and race toward the Vexhai fleet. Each pod carried only 5 or 6 human soldiers. It looked like suicide. But the pods did not try to fight the massive alien warships. Instead, they attached themselves to the hulls like parasites. The humans inside began cutting through the metal. "What are they doing?" Thekvar asked. "Boarding," Lee Daeho said simply. "Going inside to say hello." On the tactical display, Thekvar watched red dots begin to disappear. Not from weapons fire, but from the inside out. The human boarding parties were taking the ships apart from within. Reports came back over the communication system, but they were not military reports. They sounded more like excited children playing a game. "This ship had 300 bugs, not anymore. Found their ammunition storage. Pretty fireworks. Their bridge smells funny, like rotten eggs. Hey, this one has eggs. Lots and lots of eggs, not for much longer." Thekvar felt sick. The humans were not just destroying the Vexhai fleet. They were enjoying it. Every ship they captured, every alien they killed, made them happier. "Sir," Park Min-ho reported, "we have control of 2,000 enemy vessels. Our teams are working on the rest." "Excellent," Lee Daeho said. "Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was worse than anything Thekvar could have imagined. The captured Vexhai ships turned their weapons on their own fleet. Brothers fired on brothers. The alien formation collapsed into chaos as they tried to figure out which ships were still under their control. But the humans were not done. They used the captured ships to ram into other vessels. They set off explosions inside alien hulls. They turned the Vexhai fleet into a weapon against itself. "Status report," Lee Daeho requested. 7,000 enemy ships destroyed or captured," came the reply. 3,000 still fighting." "Not for long," the captain said with satisfaction. The final phase began when human reinforcements arrived. Not ships from other stations or planets. Ships that had been hiding in the asteroid field around Proxima Station. Hundreds of vessels that had been waiting for exactly this moment. "You planned this," Thekvar realized. "All of it. You knew the Vexhai would come here." Lee Daeho nodded. "We've been tracking their movements for months. This station was bait, a trap to draw their entire fleet into one place. But why? Why not just negotiate with them?" The human captain looked at him like he had asked why water was wet. "Commander, the Vexhai eat other species. They consume entire worlds. There is no negotiating with creatures like that. There is only extinction, theirs or ours." He pointed to the tactical display. "We chose theirs. The battle was over in another hour. 10,000 Vexhai ships had become 10,000 pieces of floating debris. The asteroid field around Proxima Station was full of wreckage and alien bodies. But the humans were not finished. They launched survey ships to examine every piece of debris. They wanted to make sure no Vexhai had survived." "Why?" Thekvar asked. "They're already dead. Because one survivor means they could rebuild," Private Choi Nari explained. She had returned to treating wounded, but her gentle voice now carried an edge of steel. Humans don't fight wars to win battles. We fight to solve problems permanently. As the hours passed, reports came in from across the galaxy. Human fleets were attacking Vex-High worlds everywhere. Not just military targets, but every planet, every colony, every asteroid base. Complete sterilization of Vex-High space is expected within 72 hours, Park Minho reported. No survivors detected. Tekvar stared at the display showing human fleet movements. They were not just destroying the Vex-High military, they were erasing the entire species from existence. This is genocide, he whispered. Yes, Lee Daho agreed. Complete and total. When we're done, the word Vex-High will only exist in history books. Future generations will learn about them the way we learn about extinct animals. How can you be so calm about it? You're killing billions of creatures. The human captain looked at him with something that might have been sadness. Commander, do you know what humans call a species that tries to eat us? Tekvar shook his head. Extinct. As the human ships finished their work among the debris, Tekvar realized something that chilled his blood. This had not been a desperate battle for survival. It had been an execution. The humans had lured the entire Vex-High species into a trap and destroyed them all at once. How long have you been planning this? He asked. Since first contact, Lee Daho replied. The moment we learned what they were, we started working on ways to kill them all. It took 6 months to set up the trap and gather our forces, but it was worth the wait. Tekvar thought about all the times his people had seen humans as weak and harmless. The soft skin, the small size, the gentle voices. None of it had been real. It was all a mask they wore to hide what they truly were. Captain, he said carefully, what happens now? What happens to species that have seen what humans can really do? Lee Daho looked at him for a long moment. That depends on them, Commander. The galaxy has 2 kinds of species now, human allies and human enemies. There is no third option. He gestured toward the debris field, where 10,000 ships had once been. The Vex-High chose to be enemies. This is what happened to them. Tekvar felt his legs go weak. And if other species choose to be enemies, then we'll build more traps. Bigger ones. Lee Daho's voice was calm and matter-of-fact. Humans are very good at solving problems, Commander. We've solved the Vex-High problem. We can solve others, too. The Corvani warrior looked around the command center. The humans had returned to their normal duties. They filed reports, cleaned their weapons, and talked quietly among themselves. They acted like they had just finished a normal day at work. But Tekvar would never forget what he had seen. Behind their gentle smiles and soft voices, humans were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They did not just fight wars. They erased their enemies from existence. I need to report to my superiors, he said. Of course. Lee Daho nodded. Tell them the Vex-High threat has been eliminated. Tell them human space is now safe for travel and trade. Tell them we look forward to continued friendship with the Corvani Empire. Tekvar activated his communicator and contacted the High Command. When the connection opened, he could barely speak. General Morthan, he said, the Vex-High fleet has been destroyed, all of it. The entire species has been eliminated. There was a long silence. Then the old general spoke. And the humans? They're asking if we want to join them for dinner. They're serving Vex-High. Another silence. Commander Tekvar, you will never speak of what you witnessed today. Not to anyone. Not ever. The humans must never know that we know what they truly are. Sir, because if they ever decide we're a threat, we'll end up like the Vex-High. Extinct.